When we think of divine guidance, we often think of intuition. Because what is intuition? There is something that we experience time and time, and it's something that defies logic, it defies reasoning, it defies intelligence, even. It's just something that we feel, a knowingness that something may happen or that we need to do something. We are divinely guided in those moments, whether we know it's God or not. We just have this sudden moment in which we are more present in our awareness. And through that presence, we're able to connect with that divine presence. And that divine presence is guiding us in that moment. We often think intuition is like a moment of spiritual awakening, when in reality, if you look at the people who are successful, who are prosperous, right, the people who are able to achieve and do a lot in their lives, if you actually look into their character, they rely on intuition a lot. They are inherently connected to their intuition. And this intuition is inbuilt, right? It's part of that inherent character of consciousness. That consciousness, that self effulgence, it knows everything. It's omnipresent and omniscient. It knows whatever needs to happen, again, for your greatest good, for your greatest happiness, and for your greatest growth. It takes care of you, so it knows everything that needs to happen. If there's danger in the path, it's going to tell you to turn a new way, to turn a new leaf, to do something different, to avoid going down that alleyway. You might not know why. You just have a sudden feeling, a prickly feeling, I should not go down that way. I needed to get off this plane. But so many people misunderstand what intuition really is, and they think it has to do with desire. It's because of that confused state of mind. Coming from a lower place in consciousness, we are operated more by our desires and delusions than we are by this pure consciousness, by our inherent divinity. And so, as a result, because of our attachments and fixations and our inability to identify with spirit, and our lack of discipline in following those divine principles and fundamentals, which naturally purge our being. When we follow the divine principles and fundamentals, they bring us clarity, right? It's that discipline that gives that space for this energy to work through us. It brings us greater clarity and mental acuity. It gives us greater comprehension. It gives us a greater ability of discrimination to understand what's good, what's bad, what to do, what not to do. How am I being tricked? How am I tricking myself? More power, more will, more energy to do and achieve whatever you need to do. All of these are inherent to higher states of consciousness. But when we're operating from a lower place in consciousness, our mind controls us, our thoughts. We are slaves to our own thoughts, our own feelings, our own emotions. So we start to think that we're listening to our intuition, we're listening to divine guiding us, when in reality, we are just so passionately attached to whatever we want in our lives from the level of desire, right? That we interpret divine guidance in accordance with our own values and our own desires, that it's no longer intuition, but rather we are just trying to accomplish whatever we want to do. When we're always operating from a place of confusion and desire, the outcome won't be there. The outcome will either lead to more chaos, more delusion, more desire, maybe ADD, ADHD, lack of clarity and direction in life, lack of peace, frustration. There's also this concept of satiety. Happiness, right? The nature of pure consciousness, if it's self-effulgent, it doesn't reach satiety. Meaning, if things are operated on the level of desire and attachment, say you really want a piece of chocolate cake, right? The excitement itself, it's pulling you, it's everything, every part of your being, your own psychology saying, I deserve the chocolate cake. I really want the chocolate cake. Everything is trying to justify the reason why you should have the chocolate cake. You're saying, my intuition says I got to have this chocolate cake because every part of me is on fire for this chocolate cake. I'm getting this rush of energy. This rush must be from God. It's surely not my adrenaline because I'm so passionately involved with this chocolate cake. But what happens when you eat the chocolate cake? Right? In the moment you're having it, it's very enjoyable. But after a while, the enjoyment starts to deplete. When you're full and you've had a whole slice of chocolate cake or even maybe a whole cake, after a while, you can't continue having that cake and still enjoying it at the same level you were before. The excitement fades. That's how you know that you are operating at the level of your brain and body and not at the level of spirit, because happiness doesn't fade. It doesn't fade with a sense of satiety to it. Excitement does. And when we no longer have this excitement or this purpose or this movement within our being that is moving us and propelling us to the next purpose or the next moment in our lives, right? Then suddenly we reach a state of boredom and complacency. And this complacency is actually even worse than suffering itself. And so, as a result, because of this numbness and complacency we feel in life, we want to start to feel something again. So we move on to the next desire. And we think we're following our happiness. We think we're following our life purpose. We think we're following what God wants us to do. And let's say the desire never came to fruition. We never got the chocolate cake. What's going to happen then? You're going to be miserable. Without that chocolate cake, you're going to be miserable. You're going to suffer. The disappointment alone is suffering. Intuition, whether you get the thing that you desire or not, will never leave you in a state of mind or a state of existence that perpetuates suffering. So even if you don't get the thing that you think you want, the peace is still there, the happiness is still there, because it's not coming from the world. It's not coming from your thoughts or your beliefs or your desires. It's coming from that purity in consciousness, from your innocence. This is where it becomes so imperative to have an enlightened teacher in your life. Because when you're in such a state of confusion and delusion, it's almost impossible for you to see the light, for you to see the correct path. When you are so confused, you almost don't know what the right choice to make is. And the beauty of this divine energy that comes from enlightened consciousness is that it takes all the glue, your personality, your identities, your values, your beliefs, the glue of everything that you are, and it starts to dissolve it altogether. And through this moment of dissolution, through this grace, as your consciousness raises, it's like you see the sun behind the clouds for a moment. You suddenly start to feel something there. Maybe it starts off as pain, emotional trauma, whatever it is, but it's a purging. You are feeling whatever your spirit has been feeling through its own inhibited state of being, when it's not been able to express itself properly. It's not you crying from suffering, it's your spirit crying because it's not able to shine in this world. Imagine you have like a diamond, and that this diamond is that pure awareness. It is this divine presence within you, your own nature. And because of your experiences in life, because of the way you've led your life, right? Your consciousness is a reflection of the way you have lived your life. The choices you've made, the thoughts, the emotions you've held, the way you've engaged with life, what you've taken responsibility for, all these things are reflected as your consciousness. The sum total of you. So this divine light, this divine energy, it starts to melt away. This sludge or this ice that prevents you from feeling this divine presence, because it's our choices and our direction, the way we lead our lives, that either takes us further away or closer to this divine presence. If we've experienced a lot of trauma, if we've become very attached to ways of living, if we've led a life of ignorance and made choices in alignment with that ignorance, our experiences create these layers around this divine presence that inhibits us from feeling it. And you'll see the people who are operating from a lower level of consciousness, which simply means you feel less of this divine presence. You're less aware of this existence. So these people are seekers of excitement. They are bingers. They are people who try to suppress their pain. They are people who live in a very chaotic state of mind and can never find peace no matter where they go, or what they do in their lives. So they're always trying to find the new source of stimulation, the new source of something to prevent them from feeling this numbness. And their actions are always led with the premise of confusion. So their actions themselves perpetuate their suffering. When you begin to feel this divine presence, when you go through a transformation in consciousness, when your consciousness is elevated, there's something that happens to you where you suddenly become very sensitive and you start to feel more. You feel more in life. You feel more of what comes from other people. You feel more of what's within you. You are far more connected to life because consciousness, that's the inherent reality of life. You are more connected to consciousness from that higher state in consciousness. You are more connected to the absolute. You are more connected as well to what's not true, to falsehood. You can discriminate and see the difference between the two because you feel the impact it has on your life, the impressions, that ways of being and interactions with others, the ways of other people, how they influence your state of being and your consciousness, your energy levels. You're more sensitive to drops in consciousness and moments in which your consciousness is uplifted. A lot of people who are operating from a lower level of consciousness, who are operating from a lower level of awareness, they're synonymous, they're the same. So, this lack of awareness, you don't notice the drops that you feel or that occurs to you in consciousness. You don't recognize or feel the drops that happen when you choose a moment to judge somebody or yell at somebody who doesn't deserve it, or you lie and cheat and manipulate and betray. You don't feel the drops or the impact that has on your consciousness. You're not aware of it. You don't even know what you're doing is wrong sometimes. Not all the time. A lot of the time, I think people do know what they're doing is wrong. But sometimes they're just confused and they don't know the choices they're making and the way that they are living their lives are actually having a dramatic effect on their energy levels, on their levels of consciousness. So, this divine energy from these enlightened beings, they kind of make this sludge, this ice around the diamond fall away so you can feel that divine presence again. And this divine presence, when right, this structure of awareness, this structure is dissolved, the glue of your existence, of your identity starts to dissolve little by little. You start to see peaks of this pure consciousness appear into your life. You start to see synchronicities. You start to see moments of grace. You start to witness the beauty, the infinite shining facets all around you. And then maybe you make a mistake in your life. You do something that maybe wasn't in alignment with the Dharma. Maybe it hurts someone. And then suddenly you feel that drop, life is less beautiful. You're less happy than you were before. Suddenly you have a lot more thoughts in your head. You're more disturbed than you were before. And you might not associate the two immediately because oftentimes this drop happens over a period. You don't notice the shift in your awareness until a couple of days later. Similarly, there's certain choices and actions we make in our life where we feel uplifted. We feel greater stillness within us. We feel greater peace. We're able to sit with ourselves for a longer and extended period of time without feeling the need to move and run around and do something, turn on the TV, engage in conversation. You can suddenly sit still with yourself and be at peace with that, with who you are. From a lower state of consciousness, you are more present in your life. You are more aware of your own presence in your life. And from a higher place in consciousness, you are more aware of the beauty of life. You are more aware of what extends beyond your own personality and your own identity. You start to witness the beauty and the grace from others. You start to see the beauty in nature. You start thinking of what other people need, what would make others happy. And not from a place of what can I do to make others happy, but just to see that happiness, to feel that happiness from another person, that joy, to witness that joy on someone's face. You are less involved in your life. You are more involved in the absolute, in that pure, self effulgent consciousness. And then on top of that, to have an enlightened teacher means that they can explain, even in moments when you don't feel the truth, when you don't feel that Dharma, when you don't know what the divine principles and fundamentals are. You have someone who's gone before you and already done the work, who's been on the path, who's come to the other side of it, who's free. And sometimes just following the motions with trust in your heart awakens a part of your being, and you start to feel that truth for yourself. It is very difficult to do without an enlightened teacher.